So hello everybody, be the most welcomed to the first research talk of this series. As you have seen this year, we are organizing a series of webinars that we call Research Talk, because they will cover some of today's major trends in the research field. Every month we will have a selected speaker with us who will present the latest developments on a global research trend. As you may have seen, the talks will be in English, French, or Spanish, depending on the speaker, the topic, and also the audience targeted. And today we have the honor to welcome Dr. Pablo de Castro, who will present the most recent developments in open access, including, of course, the impact of the COVID-19 pandemic on this issue. Of course, although a particular focus will be placed on Europe, he will also mention some examples from other regions of the world, because I think that the audience comes from various parts of the world. So Dr. De Castro works as open access advocacy librarian at the University of Strathclyde in Glasgow. This university ranked the 4th last year on the CWTS Leiden Open Access Ranking, which means that the university published open access a large amount of research outputs.
Online Michelle open access في سريع webinar invitation.
Dr. De Castro has an academic background in physics
online
and also served as
Pablo
secretary of EuroCRIS, a non-profit Dutch organization that promotes a professional community in the field of research, information management, and CRIS systems. Today's talk will be divided in 2 parts. First of all, Dr. De Castro will make his presentation, and afterwards, we will have time for questions and interaction. So without further delay, because we only have 1 hour, I will give the floor to Dr. De Castro.
I'm going to start sharing my screen. Good morning, everybody. Okay, so I hope you can all see my slides
yes,
now
okay.
on your screens. Thank you for the confirmation. A very quick housekeeping request to start with would be for all of you to please mute your microphones so that there is no background noise coming in while I'm doing my talk. Later on, when we have a little bit of a dialogue around the topic of open access, the organizers will unmute you or will allow you to unmute yourselves so that you can pose any questions you may have. Thank you very much. Also, apologies if there is a little bit of background noise from my side. Somebody has decided to start works out there on the road today. It's all covered in snow over here in Edinburgh, where I live. There could be a little bit of noise in the background. Apologies for that if it happened. Please bear with me. All right, so without any further ado, I will present these recent developments in open access, an overview. Thank you very much to IFCU and to Montserrat for the invitation to deliver this first research talk on the topic of open access. Again, a caveat with regard to what I will present today is that I am going to adopt mostly a European perspective. So I'm going to tell you about the recent trends in open access implementation that we are seeing from the UK or Europe. I will make emphasis in how open access is being implemented in other places, but most of the trends I will describe will fall upon a European landscape, so to speak. So as the introduction went, my name is Pablo de Castro. I am the Open Access Advocacy Librarian at the University of Strathclyde in Glasgow, which basically means engaging with researchers and with the team, the Open Access or the Scholarly Communications team at Strathclyde, to make sure the implementation of open access is as successful as possible. You have at the bottom of these slides, you have the snapshot of this CWTS Leiden ranking, where you can see that the university is ranked 4th in the world for the proportion of open access research results as a university. So as per the information on the screenshots, it's nearly 90% open access, our research output, which is quite a success. I will explain why in a minute. Just a quick introduction to my university. It's a technical uni in Glasgow, founded towards the end of the 18th century as the place for useful learning. So we have the University of Glasgow, much larger than ourselves in Glasgow. So this was a more applied. It's very strong in engineering and the sciences, although it also has social sciences and humanities. It's not too large a university. However, it's among the 20 top research intensive unis in the UK, mostly due to the collaborations with industry and the research grants, whose figures you have on the slide. Besides that, I'm co-leading an open access working group for an association of technical universities in Europe, over 50 of them, called CISAR, together with a colleague in the Technische Informationsbibliothek, the Technical Information Library in Hanover in Germany, where we look into specific strategies for open access implementation from a disciplinary-based perspective, a discipline-based perspective, which is in this case engineering and the sciences. This is very interesting because it's not that usual. You will see disciplinary approaches to open access implementation. And finally, as Montserrat said, I'm also the technical secretary for the EuroCRIS Association, which is a Dutch non-profit based, founded in 2002, based in Nijmegen in the Netherlands, which brings together or aims to bringing together a wide group of research professionals and systems working in the area of research information management. As mentioned in the introduction a few minutes ago, one of the topics of this presentation is the massive impact that the COVID-19 pandemic has had on scholarly communications. I'm sure you are already aware of all these preprints, especially that have been published by cutting-edge researchers investigating the issues around the coronavirus disease, which were posted as preprints in preprint servers without having been peer-reviewed yet. So the peer-reviewed was carried out collectively as a community, very much prompting a revolution in publishing, as stated in the right-hand side piece. You have the URLs at the bottom in case you wished to take a look at them. So there has been quite a disruption, I would say, caused by the fact that it is so important to discover, to progress from a scientific perspective with the explanation, with the investigation around COVID-19, and from a publicly funded perspective, so from an open science perspective, we have seen the European Open Air Project and the Zenodo repository creating communities for COVID-19 related research outputs, so that everything would be open. So a key aspect of the progress around fighting the COVID-19 disease is, of course, that the collaboration is happening openly worldwide. So everybody is sharing openly, everybody can read openly, either the publications or the data for the DNA for the virus, everything is being shared open. The question is how much of this will stick post-pandemic. So will we return to where we were before, where everything was closed, or most of the research results were closed, once we finish fighting this pandemic and we return to a reasonable normality again? I think the key aspect in this regard is the assessment. So it's not so much that researchers are able to post preprints. They are able to do it regularly. They could do it 2 or 5 years ago already. It's only that the way they are being assessed, so the way research is being assessed, is strongly relying at the moment on high impact factor journals. So they only get their points if they publish in high impact factor journals. So if they publish a fantastic preprint, it doesn't count, it doesn't give them points for their research assessment. So we need to very slowly and very gradually change this way of assessing research in order for researchers to be able to benefit from these workflows that are being explored these days around the pandemic. The screenshot I've posted on this slide is an example of the Declaration of San Francisco, as it's called, on research assessment principles. There is this DORA declaration. There is also the so-called Leiden Manifesto, calling for research assessment not to be based on what journal a given work is, but rather on the quality of the work itself, regardless of where it has been published. This is really important for the success of open access. So coming back for a second to this CWTS ranking 2020, this was published in May last year, roughly, and it's a wide ranking. It looks into different things. Open access is one of them, but international collaborations for a given institution is another one. And you can see that my uni, so Strathclyde, is quite well positioned, as mentioned earlier. Moreover, you can see that most of the top entries in the ranking are based in Great Britain. We will see why this is the case in a minute. There is a little bit of a language bias. We will see the methodology for this ranking in the next slide, but it's based on Web of Science publications, which inevitably introduces some bias, especially linguistic. But other than that, you can also see some Catholic universities on the ranking as well. Some of them, so Radboud's University in Nijmegen has nearly 70 or 65, 70% of open access implementation, which is a lot. So it's 122nd ranked on this ranking. And then you have universities, Catholic universities, IFCU members in different countries, the US, Chile, Belgium, or Italy, registered in this ranking. As you see at the bottom, the selection for this ranking includes 1,180 institutions from 65 different countries. So in order to be included in the ranking, the university needs to have produced at least 800 Web of Science indexed publications in the period 2015-2018. That may look quite a few, depending on the strength of the university. And this is the reason why most IFCU members are effectively not included in the ranking. But it's useful to see the percentages, because I mean, even those that are quite low on the ranking, so Università Cattolica Sacro Cuore in Milan, which is 668 ranked, it has 44.5% of open access implementation, which means that nearly 1 in every 2 research publications is open access, which is not bad at all. So the reason why so many British institutions are listed on the top, at the top of this ranking is the policies. So the open access policies are the key aspects for open access implementation. And you have a summary of the policies we have in the United Kingdom on the slide. The main one is the first one. I presume you're all aware of the difference between green open access and gold open access. This policy, which is called the HEFSI policy, the HEFSI stands for the Higher Education Funding Council for England. Although we are in Scotland, I mean, at this Strathclyde, the policy applies UK-wide, and it mandates the deposit of the accepted author manuscripts no longer than 3 months since manuscript acceptance. And then if the manuscript is not deposited in some institutional systems, typically an institutional repository or a CRIS system, as it's called, the publication will not count for the research assessment of the university as a whole. So there is a strong emphasis by research directors towards all the researchers that they please deposit every single publication, because you never know which ones will be selected for the research assessment exercise, and it's better to meet this mandate. This is, as mentioned, applicable countrywide, and this is the reason why we're having so high percentages of open access availability. Practically everything is getting deposited in terms of full text files. There are a number of additional policies I have listed on this table. They mostly apply to research funders in the UK, making funding available to institutions such as my University of Strathclyde, but practically every single research intensive university will get the so-called block grants by specific research funders in the UK, so that we can pay for article processing charges. We can pay for gold open access. I will explore this in some detail later. On the right-hand side of the screen, you have the publication explaining how to implement, how we implement open science at University of Strathclyde, in case you wanted to take a look. So this is an approach to, an attempt to explain why open access is important beyond the widespread availability of a given publication. So we know that we, as open access advocates, we want the publication to be read by not just researchers or staff at universities who have subscriptions, but way beyond. We want them to be read by teachers, by doctors, by schools, SMEs, so companies, everybody. And this is one of the reasons, one of the main reasons research funders are giving us money to pay for open access. This is an example of a recent publication in a fully open access journal in marine science and engineering. I'm not going to go too much into it, but this is about renewable energies. And the fact that it's published open access allows the researchers involved in this research to potentially establish connections with industry. So industries involved in renewable energies may want to sign partnerships with university departments or research groups that will apply for external funding, and they will have this collaboration, which is very useful. In order for this collaboration to start, people at industry need to be able to read the research that is being carried out at the university. So open access is very important. This is an example of a European Marine Energy Center, which is a discipline the previous paper was about, that we have in Orkney in Scotland. So very close to Glasgow, very close to where this cutting edge research is being carried out. So it's not difficult that this collaboration will arise. And it's understandable that the authors for the previous paper, which are Mexican, most of them, if not all of them, have chosen to come to Strathclyde in order to do their PhDs. So I'm going to summarize three important recent trends around open access, which I have called or dubbed as funders calling the shots, as you can see on the slide. So it's research funders aiming to implement open access on a wide basis through initiatives like the open research platforms. You have Open Research Europe on the slide that will be launched in March this year. It's about funders becoming publishers. We will see a little bit more about this in a minute, but funders are funders like the European Commission in this case, or the Wellcome Trust, or the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, or many others are setting these open research platforms so that their researchers, the researchers they are funding, can publish open access without needing to pay any publisher for it. Then we have Plan S, which was released in September 2018, and it's being unrolled these days. So last year, 2019, and today, it aimed for. There was a European commitment by the politicians to reach 100% open access in Europe as per the 1st of January 2021. So 3 weeks ago, basically, which hasn't totally happened. But I mean, you saw Strathclyde with 90% open access. So we're not really that far from that commitment. Plan S is an initiative launched by a series of research funders mostly in Europe to try to find ways to quickly achieve this 100% open access. And finally, we have on the right-hand side of the slide, we have an example of an open access policy for the Wellcome Trust, a charity in the UK, asking their funded researchers to deposit the accepted author manuscript, so the what we have traditionally called the postprints in open access slang, on their repositories with CC BY, with an attribution license, and with no embargo. This is a new condition from the 1st of January 2021, and in fact it's connected to Plan S because this is one of the policies that Plan S poses. So very quickly summarizing these three recent trends, this is an example of a research article published in the Gates Open Research platform, authored by one of our researchers at the University of Strathclyde. You can see that the peer review process is open. You can see who the reviewers are, what their reviews were, and you can see the progress of a given publication from the preprint stages in which it's posted to kind of the final published version after the peer review. Apologies. So on the right-hand side of the screen, you have quite a number of open research platforms that are being run these days. The European open research platform is not there, but because it was in the previous slide, that's the European Commission. It's going to be very large, this one, for Horizon 2020 project results. But you have the African Academy of Science open research platform, the Irish Health Research Board open research platform, the Wellcome Trust, the University College London, Child Health Open Research. We have an increasing number of platforms funded by different funders or even institutions, in the case of UCL in London, that are allowing funded researchers to publish open access for free. This is a summary for Plan S and its principles or its policies. On the left-hand side of the slide, you have the funders that are behind Plan S. So there's quite a range of them, including the Wellcome Trust in the UK and the so-called UKRI, UK Research and Innovation, which is the largest public funder of research in the UK. But you have funders in Austria, Finland, the Netherlands, Luxembourg, practically everywhere in Europe, Poland, and a few of them in the US as well, or at an international level. The World Health Organization is listed there as a charity. The Howard Hughes Medical Institute in the US. So it's mostly what we could call the global north. The Plan S has come from. Its main principles are summarized on the right-hand side of the screen. They include a rights retention strategy, so authors not to hand their copyright away to publishers. Open access implementation happens via journals, via platforms like the ones we just saw a slide ago, or via repositories with no embargo and attribution, Creative Commons attribution licenses. The Plan S has issues with the hybrid journals. So it has a no hybrids policy, except where transformative agreements are in place. And this is one of the key aspects. I hope you may have heard about transformative agreements. These are, I will explain them on the next slide, but basically they are agreements between publishers and usually consortia of universities in order to be able to publish gold open access without paying for it because it has been prepaid. Finally, the Plan S policies state that the open access publishing costs, the so-called APCs or article processing charges, must be transparent and will be covered by the research funders themselves. So this is the transformative agreements concept. So what this policy aims for is to try to convert journal titles from a hybrid model where the journals are closed, are subscription based, and they will only publish an individual article open access if the authors pay to make it open access. They want to flip their business model to a fully open access model. They want to convert these journals in fully open access journals by promoting an increasing number of articles that get published in them to be open. There is a very long list of transformative agreements that have been signed, mostly in Europe, but you can see one in China, for instance, on the slide. It's a very strong trend these days because it allows what researchers can perceive as free gold open access. So they don't have to pay anymore. The university has paid in advance, so the consortia has paid in advance. This is the landscape for cross-institutional collaboration around transformative agreements in Scotland. So we have a working group where we share information on what agreements each of us has in place with what publisher, and to see how we can coordinate the implementation of such agreements. Sometimes they are difficult, so you will sign what you call a read and publish agreement with a publisher, meaning that you're not only paying to read, you're not only paying a subscription, but you're also paying to publish as a university or as a consortium in advance. So researchers will have sometimes a number of vouchers that the publisher gives to you, 25 vouchers for a year, for instance, and they can benefit from one of these vouchers by contacting their open access support team in order to get their papers published gold open access without payment. However, this model is controversial. This model means paying more money because we're not only paying for subscription for reading the literature, we're also paying in advance for publishing open access. And there are regions in the world and countries in the world that are not happy with this. Either these transformative agreements or the APC model. So paying to publish gold open access is a strategy that statements like this one from Latin America deems unfeasible. So they say we don't have enough money. We cannot pay for APCs for publishing gold open access. That means that the rich countries, researchers based in rich countries, will be able to publish gold open access because they're getting the money from their research funders, whereas us, we cannot publish gold open access. We don't have the money. We have to publish in subscription journals. There are strategies to progress with open access implementation, even in these circumstances, but there is a little bit of an inequality there. So we'll see in a minute what regions, what strategies for open access implementation can be adopted at regions where APCs and transformative agreements may not be a suitable business model. So this is some examples. On the left-hand side, you have journal platforms like SciELO, which is mostly a Latin American platform, although you can see South Africa or Spain and Portugal listed among the countries as well. These journals are typically APC free. You don't have to publish, you don't have to pay to publish open access in these journals. They are what we could call subsidized by the governments, by institutions, depending on the titles. So the APCs are not required. They are absorbed by the sponsoring organization. There are similar initiatives in Africa. You can see AJOL, the African Journals Online, hosting over 500 journal titles, roughly the half of which are open access journals. It doesn't say they are APC free or APC based if an author needs to pay in order to publish open access, but typically they are APC free. And then on the right hand side, you have a webinar that was carried out from IFLA, from the International Library Association Federation, on the rights retention scheme that Plan S is proposing. So you can see it was held on the 18th of January, a week ago, and it's highlighted that this should be particularly important for Latin America and the Caribbean and beyond. And this, I'm talking Africa, I'm talking Middle East, Asia. So whenever research funders are not able to put a large amount of money on the table for their researchers to be able to pay for article processing charges or open access, there is this alternative strategy to deposit in institutional repositories. Finally, as a way to merge the SciELO initiative and the AJOL initiatives that I mentioned earlier, you have this DOAJ, the Directory of Open Access Journals. These are over 15,000 titles that are directly published open access. Of course, they include SciELO journals and AJOL journals. You can see on the screenshot that roughly 70 to 75% of the titles are not charging APCs. So they are free to publish in. So there's quite a lot of titles where you can publish open access for free. And this DOAJ, this directory, takes care of making sure that every title included in the directory is safe. So you must have heard about predatory publishers. So publishers that will publish anything without any peer review. This is dangerous. You don't want this to happen. So the idea would be to submit to safe titles that are free. that you don't have to pay an APC for. So the DOAJ is the right place to check that a given title is safe. So finally, I have included at the bottom, and this is, I think, my last slide, a number of strategies that any institution anywhere in the world can implement in order to increase their open access implementation rates. So this is the first one. I mean, I'm an open access advocate. The first one involves talking to authors. So having presentations for authors at your universities, explaining why it's good for them to deposit their papers in the institutional repository, assuming you have an institutional repository. Then a second one is to run journal platforms, institutional journal platforms using OJS, the Open Journal System, which is an open source journal manager that libraries can manage for the department. And finally, there is an advocacy work as well to be done in order to promote a good open access policy. So basically a mandate that where the university management or even at national level, there is a mandatory requirement for researchers to deposit accepted author manuscripts, so for the final version of their works before they get published after peer review, but still without any publisher branding, to deposit them into their institutional repositories. There are other actions that open access support teams can take. I'm happy to discuss them with you now that we have some time for a dialogue. Thanks for your attention.